Stephen, come on up. Don't be shy, come on, you're not to worry. This is a very casual crowd.
You're among friends.
You're just among friends. Okay, so if you're on the tour, you're all here, you're on the tour. You signed up, go find your name, sign next to it. If you registered after 10 o'clock last night, just put your name in the blank spot in the back. Very boring, done. Okay, there's some flyers lying about if anyone wants to. Kim, can you grab some flyers and maybe put them at the front of the table? Perfect. We made flyers for today. Please take them, they're nice. They bring you up to speed on what we do. Exactly, they're good propaganda for us. Thank you. And I packed all the other ones, so it's good to use quick. Okay. I'm Richard. This is tour number 4 in the series about the Broadway Streetscape Master Plan, and today I am going to, with the help of my good friend Stephen, whom I'll introduce in a second, I'm going to talk about, and Stephen's going to help, talk about the history of Bullocks. Bullocks started literally across the street, about half a block down at 7th and Broadway in 1907. The Tahoma building. And Mr. Letts and Mr. Mr. John Bullock, who was funded by Mr. Letts, who started the Broadway, began their expansion from 7th and Broadway all the way up to 7th and Hill, and then north half a block on Hill Street. So we have about 8 buildings to talk about. It'll take about 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to talk about, well, in addition to the buildings, we're going to talk about St. Vincent Court, which is this courtyard in between, about halfway through this expansion, which started in 1907. March 7th, 1907. I'll look at my notes. March 7th, 1907, I think, was opening day of Bullocks, and by 1919, they've gotten to Hill Street, and by 1930 is the last building, the 8-story addition, John Parkinson. And when we get to Hill Street, the last building, 1930, emotionally is a bit of an afterthought, because in 1928, right. Bullocks Wilshire.
Opened in 29.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. 1929 is Bullocks Wilshire. So emotionally, department stores are leaving downtown. So this expansion in 1930 that we'll talk about really is just it's just something that had been put in motion 20 years earlier. It was just finally realized. And so we'll talk about Parkinson and his work at Bullocks Wilshire and this 8-story addition in 1930, and maybe most importantly of all, the Hotel Continental that they tore down, which is where all the vaudeville and burlesque performers lived. And it's very, very sad. It's very, very, very sad. So, Stephen, why don't you tell us who John Parkinson is very quickly? Can I introduce you properly? This is Stephen G. He has written a book about John Parkinson, Iconic Vision.
Yes.
John Parkinson, Los Angeles architect.
John Parkinson, architect of Los Angeles.
Tell us.
Well, John Parkinson's not just an important architect in the history of Los Angeles. He's not even just the most important British architect in the history of Los Angeles. He's the greatest public architect in the history of the city. No other architect did more to define Los Angeles as a city that embraced the future, and he did this at a time when it was really inventing itself. He arrived here in 1894. The population is that's the best back noise ever. He arrived here in 1894. The population is 50,000 people. He dies in 1935, and it's well over 1 million. You know, so John Parkinson gives LA its first steel frame structure, Home Laughlin building on Broadway. His first skyscraper, the Brady Block. He designs the master plan for USC. He's the lead architect for City Hall, Union Station. In fact, between 1905 and 1915, in partnership with Edwin Bergstrom, he designs, by his own estimate, 80% of the modern office buildings downtown. So nobody really has a greater stake in downtown and the commercial structures downtown than John Parkinson. And he comes from Lancashire, England, where my dad's from, and that's how I got interested. So
right. So okay, you have to tell us just a little bit more about that, because that's really one of the more endearing parts of this. So your grandfather and John Parkinson came from the same county.
Oh, well, my dad's from the same county.
Okay.
I mean,
the connection, just the whole notion of you know who your father is, you know where your father came from.
Right.
So the notion that you really have a sense, a direction of where John Parkinson came from.
Yeah, I mean, I started working downtown several years ago, and I did all these tours, and I read all these books, and people would say, that's a Parkinson structure, that's a Parkinson structure, that's a Parkinson structure. And there was so many of them that I went back and I Googled John Parkinson, and he came from Lancashire, Scotland in Lancashire, grew up in Bolton. Bolton's 10 miles away from where my dad came from. And I felt like I understood his value system. And his values growing up were basically that if you worked hard, you've gone on, you know, and the best man got the best job. And he believed that to his very core. And I kind of like that about him, you know. So that's how the connection started. It just kind of grew into a book and a documentary, and it never seems to stop, which is quite enjoyable.
How is the documentary?
Well, thank you for asking. So I did a talk the other day, and somebody asked that question. I thought they were planted, but they weren't.
I'm planted.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working on the documentary. I've got all these interviews. I did an interview with Angela Lansbury, who used to work in Bullocks, Wiltshire, as a cashier. Took me a year to get it. I begged it. I sent her flowers, figured out when her birthday was, sent her cards, chocolate.
I knew her growing up. You should have just told me.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, she turned me down 5-6 times. And in the end, she said yes. So I went round her house, and she had all these theories about John Parkinson. She'd read everything I ever sent her, you know. And you think about these classy golden era actresses that really do their research. She was one of them. She really got stuck in. But I've got all this amazing footage. You know, thanks to Richard, I found some footage the other day of the opening of Union Station, the parade. It's in colour. It's fantastic.
Union Station opens 1939.
39, May of 39. There's footage of the opening of City Hall. There's footage of the construction of City Hall. All these buildings in Parkinson's story. But the problem I've had is that it's so expensive to license archive footage. You know, it's sometimes up to like $50 a second. That slowed the film down. So wrote the book to draw attention to the film, and now I want to finish the film and push Parkinson's story as far as it will go.
Gordon?
Tell us about, by the way, my grandmother worked at Bullocks, both Bullocks. She ran the Oriental Silk Department. But tell us about his education, his training.
Well, that's the most fascinating bit. I mean, he left school when he's 13 years old. He has no, he bounces between menial jobs. His first job is sweeping floors in a hardware store. He works at a newspaper, the local newspaper, and he's not a reporter. You know, he's selling newspapers. And it's not until he's 16 that his life has any kind of focus. He's apprenticed for 6 years to a local builder. At the end of that 6 years, he comes to America, you know, just for fun, basically, and gets hired in a sawmill. Goes back to Bolton, no work for him, comes back to the United States. He's working in Napa. He's working as the foreman of a sawmill. His landlord sees the plans for the sawmill. Landlord sees the plans for his own house that he's designing and says, you could design an addition to the Bank of Napa where my brother works. He wants to build an addition, and really that's where his whole architecture career begins. No formal training. In fact, he reads every publication he can get his hands on and figures it out for himself. And he was really the last generation of architects that would get away with that. You know?
And his whole career is obsession with technology.
Yeah.
Every building we're going to look at is 10 years later, basically, and every 10 years there's more to making buildings stronger, building them faster.
I mean, the thing about him is that, you know, he goes to the East Coast and he's bringing all these East Coast technologies into Los Angeles construction. He's building the first steel frame structure in the city. They've had steel frame structures in Chicago for 10 years, but they've never had one in Los Angeles. And the things that he implements really sets the standard for downtown and says, you know, that we're prepared to compete as an international city by having these great buildings. Parkinson's the one that really leads the way in putting fireproof technology and all these other things that you expect from a modern city into downtown Los Angeles.
Good. Oh, and your book, where can they get it?
Any good bookstore, hopefully. Amazon.
You have a website?
Thank you. I'm going to pay the later. I have a simple website called John Parkinson Architect, which will tell you a little bit about the book, a little bit about the film, and a little bit about what I'm doing.
Angel City Press put your book out?
Angel City Press published the book. We had the launch at City Hall in the Tower, which was just fantastic. And then May the 3rd this year was John Parkinson Day in the city of Los Angeles. And the City Council have taken steps to rename the intersection of 5th and Spring Street, John Parkinson Square. And John Parkinson had a hand in all 4 structures on all 4 corners of 5th and Spring.
Perfect. What I'd like to do is just get us, what we're going to do is we're going to leave soon, and we're going to walk down to 7th and Broadway and just very slowly make our way we'll stand in front of Clifton's, not talking about Clifton's because it's too sad, and we'll look across the street and we'll talk about the 1907 structure, the Hollenbeck building, which was remodeled in 1912, and then we'll walk across the street up 7th to St. Vincent Court, and we'll pick up the expansion from 1912 to 1919 in St. Vincent Court, and then we'll walk the rest of the block to Hill and 7th, and we'll stand in front of the first Pantages Theater, which is now the Warner Brothers Theater, and look across at the Hill Street expansion, which is 22 and 30, the 1930 being the Parkinson 8-story addition, and that'll just sort of wrap up the tour. So Stephen, what I'd like to do, and you just explained this to me 10 minutes ago, this is so interesting. So Bullocks started life in the Tahoma building, and at 7th and Broadway, we're going first. I didn't realize this, but the man that owned the Tahoma building introduced Parkinson and his partner Bergstrom. So tell us the story. I didn't know this. It's really interesting.
Edwin T. Earle, who made his fortune, I guess, by he invented like this system in rail cars where you could transport produce from the west coast to the east coast and without it going bad. So some refrigerating system in it. It made a ton of money. He built the building that Bullocks is in, and he leased it to Bullocks.
Mr. Latz, yeah.
Right.
50-year lease.
Yeah. And before that even happened, Edwin T. Earle, who was the publisher of the Los Angeles Evening Express, was it? He gives a letter of recommendation to a young architect from the East Coast called Edwin Bergstrom. Comes into Parkinson's office with this letter of recommendation, and he's hired on the spot as a draftsman. And it's all because of Edwin T. Earle, who owns this building.
The Tahoma building where Bullocks is his house.
Yeah, but just to give you some background on him, he's a real tough taskmaster. In fact, in 1906, during the end of this construction, Parkinson goes on a holiday with his family, goes to Germany, travels around. Edwin T. Earle sends him a letter, says, if you don't come back right now, you lose my contract and you lose all my business. And he packed it all in. And I managed to find his Parkinson's daughter's diary, and she writes about having this amazing holiday cut short and how she had to come back, and nasty Mr. Earle had a fit and made them come back.
Wow, thank you. Perfect. Good. You're done for the moment. Take a breath. Good job. Okay. So everyone go buy his book. All right. Let's go downstairs. I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I'm sorry. Are there any questions? I'm sorry. Didn't think so. Okay, good. All right. Let's meet outside in a couple of minutes. I've got some gear. I got to take the elevator down because ultimately it's easier than folding and unfolding. And we'll just meet outside in a couple of minutes, and then we'll walk down to Clifton's. And it is just on general principle. Look at my watch. It is 2:45. So I think this will take about an hour and 10 minutes to get through this walkthrough. Okay, and then we'll just be at 7th and Hill. So we'll see everyone downstairs in a couple of minutes. Hotel?
And then we moved to Beverly Hills, and we built some buildings in Beverly Hills. Built an office building there, a stock brokerage house.
What year are you talking about? Is this before World War II or after?
It was when I was alive.
Oh, okay, so after World War II.
Yeah, so we moved to Palm Springs when I was like 5 or so.
Okay.
And we lived in Beverly Hills starting when I was like 6.
Yeah, he's easily accessible. He has a website and he's for hire. That's the story.
I'm sorry, it's a parking lot.
Okay. Stephen, come on. Don't be shy. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So we are standing directly in front of Clifton's Cafeteria, which has nothing to do with the store, but is very sad. Directly in back of you. That's very sad. It's another joke. All right. Behind me is the Tahoma building. This was constructed. It opened in March 4th. I checked my notes. March 4th, 1907. It opened as the entire store opened as Bullocks department store. Mr. Letts, who ran the Broadway, was the financier, and John Bullock, who was the manager of the Broadway, got the name. Broadway opened at 4th and Broadway, 3 blocks up, about 3 years early. The big building about 3 years earlier. So there are 2 buildings behind me. The building directly on the corner with the Big Lots Blade sign, that is the Tahoma building. That's the 8-story Tahoma building. That's the original Bullocks in 1907. This taller building behind me that is about 3 stories higher with flagpole, that began life as the Hollenbeck building. This is Elizabeth Hollenbeck, built in around 1897, 1898, after she finished construction of the Hollenbeck home for the aged in Boyle Heights. In 1911, Mr. Letts made a deal with the Hollenbecks that he was going to purchase the building, and Robert B. Young had plans to, they were going to remodel the whole facade of the Tahoma building and tear down the Hollenbeck building and build a new structure. They chose not to do that. They took the existing structure, and this becomes the theme, they took the existing Hollenbeck building and they merged the Tahoma building into it. So they just made sure that all the floors somehow worked out, and that was in 1912. And this is what they do. This is what Bullocks does then until 1930. Is they take over existing buildings and they make them work. They merge them all together. And Parkinson was the architect. Isn't that interesting that Robert B. Young was the architect in 1911? I found an article that showed drawings. Robert B. Young is my personal favorite 19th century Los Angeles architect. Stevens is John Parkinson. Mine is Robert B. Young. Robert B. Young built the Hotel Lancashire, which is of course now a parking structure where the Carl's Jr. is at the other across the street. Robert B. Young built, well, if we were walking more than half a block, we'd see 6 Robert B. Young buildings, but we're only walking half a block, so we won't. But if I see one, I'll point them out. So this is where Bullocks starts. It opened at night, and they said there were 20,000 people in the streets. So they closed this intersection. This intersection was closed to traffic. There was so much. And what I will do at the end of the tour is I will read the tour breakdown of the entire complex of, this is 8 floors. By the end of the expansion in 1930, there's 750,000 square feet of retail space. So this by 1930, this is a giant department store. Are there any questions? We have a lot to do, so don't worry if you don't have any questions. All right, what I want to do is we're going to go to the corner and we're going to cross the street and let's just wait for me under the Big Lots Blade sign. Okay? Good. Okay. So we get a really, okay, so now we're across the street. There are a couple salient aspects, excuse me, a couple salient points to make. The building, the Tahoma building and the Hollenbeck building, you probably figured out when we were across the street, it's now a parking structure. This happened in 1995. What's interesting is that Bullocks closed in 1983. They decided to close this and they moved to another structure in the financial district in a brand new building, very sad. In 1996, the Los Angeles Public Library burned, practically burned to the ground, and the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles, decided that Bullocks was going to become the temporary home for all the books and the library. This turned out not to be the case, but what's interesting, those of you that care about the library, what's interesting is that a lot of you that care about the library think that because the library burned down, that's why they rebuilt it. No. Before the arson, it was already decided that the library would be closed for an undetermined period of time and rebuilt. And that that's why they were so quick to try and make this the headquarters, because the CRA had already figured out we have to close Central Library. We don't know how we're going to ruin it in this remodeling, but we're going to remodel it, and happily they didn't. So, parking lot, also, the parking lot across the street, that used to be Robert B. Young's Lancashire Hotel, which was built in 1905, and that had 600 rooms. That was a big hotel. It looked very much like the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. The parking lot right across the street. Very sad. That made it till about 86. This turned into a parking lot in 1995. I would like everyone to direct their attention across the street. And a beautiful, look at this, I love the mist, right? Beautiful light. Does everyone see the Blade sign for the Yorkshire Apartments next door to the parking lot? Okay, Stephen, come on over here and tell us about this beautiful 1904 residency hotel. Oh, okay. That's okay. I'll be on there. All right. So, Yorkshire Apartments. Everyone see it as the green fire escapes? John Parkinson, 1904. It's a residency hotel. It still is. We've had people on our bus that have stayed there for 2 weeks. So you don't, it's not a 6 week, it's a real, actual single room occupancy. You can give them a week's rent and they'll let you stay there. The Yorkshire Apartments become very important at the end of the tour. So I'm just noting this. Everyone remember the Yorkshire Apartments. This will come back into play later on. And, library. Yeah. Stephen, can we see any other John Parkinson buildings from here? I don't think we can. No, okay. Kim, I want you to lead the way. Let's go to St. Vincent Court. Oh, question. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Hashtag.
Yes.
I walk by this building all the time, and like, why did they make the parking structure like inside the building instead of just tear down?
I'm glad. I know absolutely nothing. I've tried for years to find out why the decision was made to save the building. I'm glad it was. I think because the building is so well built. And it was so well built. I mean, it was a proper steel frame construction, clad in concrete. I think it was just ultimately cheaper just to gut it and engineer it with very steep. It's a very tough, tight parking lot to get in and out of. But just engineer it so people could actually drive their cars in. I think it was ultimately cheaper than to tear the building down and start from scratch. By 1995, parking lots are really expensive. I mean, parking lots are, by 1995, it's very expensive to build a parking lot. My wife correctly reminds me, if you're taking pictures on social media, pushing it through social media, hashtag Broadway on my mind. Okay? We want the mayor's office to listen to this. Yeah. Oh, I didn't talk about why we give this tour. Right. I was so excited you're here with us. The reason we give this tour is, of course, that the city has passed funding for Phase 1, Strategy 1, Phase 1 of the Broadway Streetscape Master Plan, which is, of course, a plan to completely destroy the street. So that's why we give these tours, because we want people to see how great this street is and try and save it. One of the biggest crises facing this street are the terrazzo sidewalks. Unfortunately, the sidewalk we're standing on right now is not terrazzo, but it is sort of an example of the artistic sidewalks that exist on Broadway that have no protection under historic ordinances. This is a really bad example because I hate it and I slip on it all the time in the rain. But it does fall in that category. I think we'll see some terrazzo sidewalks on the other side of the street. We'll point them out. But keep your eye open for terrazzo sidewalks. And Kim, why don't we go to St. Vincent Court? Oh,
Is there one there?
We were standing in front of Clifton, when we were in front of Clifton's cafeteria, the Clifton sidewalk designed by the same architect that designed where the Figaro Cafe is one of the best examples of terrazzo sidewalk on Broadway. And they're very important, and it's absolutely impossible to landmark them. And if you want to know why, ask me after the tour. It's very complicated. And I've talked to everyone about it. So, Kim, let's go to St. Vincent Court.
Follow me!
So last tour, he said something to the effect that they had to take away all the corner stuff. But I noticed on Broadway, there's still quite a lot.
There's some, they cut them and so they say, yes,
Oh yeah.
So I came a little late to this because we were actually getting, my husband and I and our friend Robin, we're getting trained on their phones. Because we're doing arts.
All right, I'm going to just jump around. We are in St. Vincent Court. No apostrophe, no S. St. Vincent Court. This plot of land first got properly cordoned off and surveyed and labeled because it was the home to Loyola Marymount University. It was the first home at 1883 to 1894, and then they moved to Washington and Maine, and now they're all the way out. But this was just an open field with a church and some outbuildings that the Jesuits had as the first university in Los Angeles. This passageway we're in, it's about twice the size. They had about a 40-foot, it was about 35, 40 feet wide, and it was where the carriages would bring everyone into school. And it was just a pathway. And by 1900, Stephen, what's the name of the man that built the Tahoma building? Where'd you go, Stephen? Edward Teal.
Edwin then a T, in other words, Tobias, actually Tobias Earl.
Edwin Tobias Earl. Yeah, great. Okay. So by the time Edwin Tobias Earl, by 1905, has set his sights at the intersection of 7th and Broadway, this area we're standing in was actually used as an army camp. It was an open field, and the army was using it for training. So, 1907, the building goes up. 1912, Mr. Letts and Mr. Bullock purchased this building immediately to our north, and the name of this building is This is the Gerhard Eschmann building, okay? And this is built in 1908. So this is the Gerhard Eschmann building. In 1912, Mr. Letts purchases the building and plans to expand Bullocks over this alley into the Eschmann building. And the goal is, of course, to get to Hill Street, right? There's one building
that when we get out on the street, you'll see this, but there's the Eshman building, and then there's a small two-story structure that Colonel Dwight Hart, who owns the Rockville and Hotel, has just at the corner of 7th and Hill. So Mr. Letz's manifest destiny, we've got to get to Hill Street. So it's 1912. John Parkinson, once again, is contracted to take the Eshman building and make it work with Bullocks. The only problem is that the buildings are separated by an 80-foot wide alley, right? So this takes a couple of years. By 1917, the building's purchased. I said 1912. 1917, the building's purchased. By 1920, Mr. Letts and John Parkinson are in a lot of trouble, possibly with the city council, because several members of city council and several prominent residents feel that these bridges that Mr. Parkinson has designed to merge the original Bullock structure with the Eshman building, they feel that building a bridge over a public thoroughfare, which is what St. Vincent's Court is a violation of municipal code, and that either the bridges should be torn down or Mr. Letts should be made to pay a monthly fee for the use of the air rights of public space over this public thoroughfare. So, I haven't forgotten, don't worry. So, this is where it gets interesting. So, it's relatively pretty straightforward. There's some interesting aspects, side effects of this case, or notes to this case. In 1920, there is an entity known as the Municipal Art Society in Los Angeles. It's a civic, it's within the city government, and there's a head, and he has an assistant, a secretary, and their secretary is actually Alfred Rosenhunt, who's the architect of the Hamburger's department store at 8th and Broadway, 1906, but that's a side note. The head of the Municipal Art Society is in cahoots with, or probably in the pay of, William Randolph Hearst. So this is where it gets interesting. 1920, Bullocks is advertising exclusively in the Los Angeles Times. They're not advertising with William Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst sees this note in council minutes that they're asking the city attorney what would be an appropriate fee, monthly fee to pay for the use of air rights over a public street. And Hearst starts publishing editorials and stories that Mr. Letts should be drawn and quartered, John Parkinson should lose his license, they should all be put on a boat and sent back to wherever they came from, that they're destroying the city of Los Angeles, the moral fiber of the city is terribly, is in grave jeopardy. And this goes on for 6 months. Finally, it's agreed that Mr. Letts will pay $1,500 a month. Think about $1,500 to $2,000, around $1,500 to $2,000 a month. He will pay the city of Los Angeles for the right to have these bridges, which connect his two buildings. And I've written to the current owners of the building, and they never write me back. I have no idea if they still pay it. I imagine they do. I don't know why they. I don't know why they wouldn't. So that's. It's relatively quiet in here. I know it doesn't seem quiet, but it's relatively quiet. All right, so there are two bridges, and John Parkinson built them, and so they connected the two structures. So let me take a sip of water, and then we'll bring us up to the present day. At this point, let's start talking about 1983. 1983 is when Bullocks closes, and they move over to 8th and Flower or something. They sell the entire compound we're looking at. They sell it to a single entity, and they rename it the St. Vincent's Jewelry Center. So basically, with the sale of this compound to this real estate company, you get the birth of the jewelry district. You already have a lot of jewelry shops here, but with the vacation of the vacancy of the building by Bullocks, this just becomes an emporium for small jewelry shops, manufacturers, fabricators, dealers in stones, whatever, to move in this whole, and the jewelry district as we know it, this is a really big milestone in the creation of this neighborhood as the jewelry district. When this closed in 1983, there was a florist shop where the coffee shop is, and that was so if you find the old timers, as Kim and I have, these older Persian and Armenian gentlemen that chain smoke over their Turkish coffee for 12 hours a day in this courtyard. And you ask them, what was here when Bullocks closed? What did you miss the most in that weird transition period that took about 3 to 4 years before this started coming to life again? And they said, well, you know, the Flâneur shop was really nice because you'd be walking down the street and the Flâneur shop was always open when it was light outside, and you'd want to stop because there were nice flowers. And Bullocks had a soup bar, and Friday was Manhattan clam chowder. And they said they really, if they had to say one thing they miss about Bullocks being here, it's the Manhattan clam chowder on Friday and the soup bar. So, what we see today, so the CRA, Donald Spivak's not here, so I will talk about the CRA because he can. The Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles, in its infinite wisdom, decided that with Bullocks vacating this courtyard, this would be a great way to show the city that they, as the urban planning branch of the city of Los Angeles, knew how to rehabilitate the space. So they worked out a deal with the people that purchased the building to put in a 4-story stainless steel atrium made out of shiny stainless steel I-beams and glass. And happily, this never happened. Happily, this never happened. And in 1990, the CRA decided that they were going to put up these facades of charming Central European origin. And yeah, I don't know. I've been asking for years who thought of this, and no one knows. But about 1990, the delis had started to come back. The bookshops never came back, but the delis and the coffee shops started to come back, and they put up these charming Central European facades to give the alleys some appeal. Before Bullocks closed in the 70s, one of the second espresso bar in Los Angeles was here. Pasquini's. Pasquini's still exists as a commercial vendor at Olympic and
Around Bonnie Bray?
About Bonnie Bray, yeah. Mr. Pasquini opened the first espresso bar in Los Angeles in 1964 at Sunset Plaza in West Hollywood, and his second one was right here in St. Vincent's Court. So that's, yeah. And Steven, do you have anything? You don't have to. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that.
You have to take the microphone, though.
Controversy that Richard was talking about with William Randolph Hearst was an enormous story. I mean, I went back and I read through all the newspapers of the period, and it is the front page story. I mean, William Randolph Hearst threw everything in the kitchen sink with Bullocks. He hated them. He hated
They
them
wouldn't
with a
advertise
passion.
them.
Yeah, and he was prepared to do anything to bring them down.
They never capitulated?
Never.
Good for them.
Oh, that was my question. Did they just start advertising with him so he would shut up?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, political careers disappeared on this story. I mean, it was the hatred was so passionate. I mean, it got to the point when I was reading through the newspapers, you want a different story because it literally was every day for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks front page news.
Yeah. It was a really big deal. Advertising. There was a line, and you either advertised with Hearst or you advertised with the Chandlers and the Times. And by 1920, it had sort of blown over. But 10 years earlier, there were still real labor union problems in 1920. But before the bombing of the Times, right around the bombing of the Times period, there were really serious boycotts based on whether you advertised with the Times or you advertised with the Hearst papers. So this was, for about 20 years, this was very, very serious stuff. And really polluted the newspapers, I think. I mean, these stories are unbelievable, as Steven said. Every day, you just read the same headline, and it's really boring. Yes?
What's going on with this now? There's no
I was
battle.
just about to get to that. Don't worry. Gordon, what is your question?
I was just going to say, having been here when this was Bullocks, you could definitely tell that you were going from one building to another across a bridge like this, and from a big open space over here through a little causeway to a big open space over there, or from one building, adjacent building to another. I was reminded of that. I was in Harrods in London, which was built, I think there were several buildings that were attached together. You get the same kind of a feeling going from one building to another within this department store.
I know just what you're talking about, where the Liberty stuff is.
Yeah.
Okay, Good. Are there any other questions about this older stuff? And now we'll talk about the tragedy that is today.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Since it's not weather, it's not snowing.
Right. Not
the whole
weather,
purpose
not
is
snow.
to keep you in the bubble, so you'll keep buying Bullock stuff. Is that the idea? Rather than walking outside, walking
Yes.
across.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the notion was to have a completely self-contained 750,000 square. So what I started to bring up and lost the thread of, I mentioned the Secretary of the Municipal Arts Society, which is the entity that officially lodged the complaint about the bridges designed by John Parkinson and submitted to the building department. The Municipal Arts Society was the first official complaint that these are not quite and needed to be looked at. Alfred Rosenheim was the secretary of the Municipal Arts Society. He was also the architect of Hamburger's department store at 8th and Broadway, which opened 1 year after Bullocks and was built as a single entity with 1 million square feet. So Hamburger's department store opened with 1 million square feet a year after Bullocks, and I think Mr. Letts really hated the Hamburgers. And so you get this tension between Letts and Rosenheim, the architect of Hamburgers. Rosenheim is actually officially removed by City Council from position of assistant to the head of the Municipal Arts Society because it's found out that he's taking bribes. What the Municipal Arts Society did is they would basically go to property owners who wanted to develop and say, oh, you have to hire Alfred Rosenheim as an architect for $100 a month, and then we'll approve your plans. It's sort of like beyond building and safety, you have this art society that approved the aesthetics of the buildings of the moment. Very complicated, very, very complicated.
And yet it seems to have worked well.
It did work well. And Rosenheim was a genius. Hamburger's department store is beautiful. So, today, up until about March of this year, this was a really nice public space because you have a lot of, besides the bridges, there are lots of doors that open up onto both buildings, and all the jewelers, everyone that does business here comes down to the cafes, and there are tables everywhere, and you just sit out here and you chain smoke and you drink your Turkish coffee and you just conduct your business. In March, what department was it? Building and Safety came in March and said, I'm sorry, every single table here with the exception of 3 or 4 is not licensed and you have to take them away. And business in St. Vincent's Court dropped like 70%. So in the middle of the day, you used to come here and it was just packed with people, and now it's a wasteland. You basically can sit on the curbs. You basically can sit one chair thick, and it's very, very sad. And
FedEx trucks?
What?
FedEx trucks.
Right. So what happens now is you just get a lot of FedEx trucks and the trucks for the art departments for films that film at the Los Angeles Theater. So it's just really, really sad. This used to be one of the great public spaces of downtown Los Angeles. And they closed it, and Jose Huizar, who is in charge of this district, has vowed to speed up the process, but yet it's already October and there are no tables back here. So I think it's really tragic what's happened here with the cafe tables. It's really, really, really sad. It used to be a really great place to come and have lunch, and now it's just dead. Okay, so what basically happened is that the guy that owns that's the Los Angeles Theater. The wall at the end of this alley, that's the Los Angeles Theater, and the Deljani family owns it. And basically they said, well, we don't want tables. Even though this is basically a blind alley, we don't want tables here because we want production companies that film in our theater to have unfettered access to those loading docks. So if you have a bunch of cafe tables, it's really hard to get trucks down here. So, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know they can do both, but they don't want to do both. And you know what? I'm here to tell you that they're just very stubborn men. I've talked to both of them on this topic in the locker room of the Los Angeles Athletic Club, but they don't want to listen to anyone. And they're not going to come to a compromise until they decide they're ready. And the people that lease from them will go out of business, and then they'll have no income from these stores, and they'll start all over again. And so they're very stubborn men that are having this battle, and that's what downtown is about, right? Right? So it's very, very sad. And I truly, genuinely hope the Delajonis and the gentleman that owns the St. Vincent Jewelry Center can figure out an amicable agreement. And I sincerely doubt that Council District 14 will help them, because they've failed to do so in the last 7 months. I think that's it. Yes, the location fee on the Los Angeles Theater is at least $20,000 a day. Kim, would you like, if I held the camera, for you to tell us the younger Delajonis' vision for downtown Los Angeles? Oh, come on, please.
No.
Okay. The Delajonis, it doesn't matter. It's just, it's downtown, right?
You know what it is. You can say it as well as I can.
Downtown is never going to come back until all the property owners that rent out their spaces for filming decide that they're not going to rely on film revenue anymore, and they're going to figure out how to turn their spaces into viable commercial spaces. Because what happens if you get $20,000 a day for filming, you can afford to keep it closed 28 days a month. 20 days a month. If you get filming there 5 days a month, you're set. You're making a lot of profit. So this is really a big problem. And St. Vincent's Court suffers. And we should stop talking about theaters, because that's not what this tour is about. So, are there any questions? Yes?
Any of these businesses gone out of business?
I don't think any of them have gone out, but they've all suffered terribly.
They've let some staff go.
Yeah, they're basically family run, and I think basically whatever employees, whatever skeleton employee staff they have is getting pared away, and just the families doing everything now. But yeah, they're really suffering.
Robin just bought her place. Robin, she just bought this place.
Are there any questions? We need to keep moving. St. Vincent's Court is very sad today. I cry every time I pass it. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, let's keep walking. I want to walk to the corner and we'll stop. Okay, so let's just walk to Hill Street and we'll regather. Very sad here.
Are you talking about the Hotel Continental?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
All right, we're in the home stretch. Okay. Here. Drop this up. Steven, are you ready to talk about Bullocks Vulture? Okay, good.
Oops, sorry. Okay, does everyone see this building with the blade sign in the corner? Great. What is it? The blue blade sign here? The building runs south with the 4 bays and then the 5th bay at the top with the cornice. That building with the cornice, that's Robert B. Young. I forget the name of it, but I've mentioned Robert B. Young several times. That's a Robert B. Young building. I think that's 1906. All right. All right, let's get straight with the expansion. All right. The building, we were standing. If you're in St. Vincent Court and you're facing the street, building to your right was purchased in 1917, and that's the Gerhard Essman building. You can't see it because the St. Vincent's Jewelry Center building is in front of it, but there's a building between us and St. Vincent's Court. Okay, that's 1917. Okay. 1917. This building goes up. No, wait. Yeah. Okay. 1919, the dream is realized. Mr. Letts purchases the 2-story building at this corner. Okay, there's a 2-story 19th century structure, and he purchases it. and that's it. He's won. He has the Gerhardt Airman building that's fronting St. Vincent's Court. He now owns this lot, and John Parkinson's going to build him this building in 1919, and the rest of Hill Street is his if he wants it. Okay, so let's look at
Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. This gets more complicated. This is very complicated. Okay. Will you hold this for me, Stephen? Okay. Okay. Let's take a deep breath. Okay. This is a Bullocks. This building is built exclusively for Bullocks in 1919 by John Parkinson. Okay. In 1919, it's a two-story wood structure that is owned by Colonel Dwight H. Hart, who with his brother owns the Rosslyn Hotels, the twin hotels. Well, it's at the moment only one hotel at 5th and Main. They haven't built the twin building across the street yet. In 1919, Parkinson begins construction on this building. What's interesting is that in 1917, Mr. Letts purchases the Keys building, which is this white, the cream-colored building just to the north. So that building is purchased by Mr. Letts, the financier of Bullocks, in 1917. 2 years later, he buys this lot, and they're done. Okay? They're not done yet. They have one more. They have a couple more buildings to tear down, but they've cornered the market. They now own all the frontage from the northwest corner of 7th and Broadway to the northeast corner of 7th and Hill, and down a couple buildings. So they've got the whole corner, and they've got 2 more buildings to go. So 1917, they purchased the cream-colored building, and in 1919, John Parkinson constructs. This is a 10-story building, I think, Stephen. Yeah, John Parkinson constructs this 10-story building, which becomes the flagship for their presence on Hill Street. Okay, so we still have a couple more buildings to go. Need my tablet again. This is where it gets confusing. And who asked me about, John, you asked me about the Hotel Continental? Okay, got it. By the way, this has nothing to do with books, but does everyone see the William Fox building? 1929, it's a beautiful building. Beautiful Art Deco, glazed terracotta, Gladdy McKean terracotta, beautiful structure. Mr. Fox was the man who financed the Los Angeles Theater, which is just in back of it on Broadway. So if you're standing on top of the William Fox building and looking east to Broadway, you're in back of the Los Angeles Theater. And that's an interesting story for another book. All right. Okay. All right, we're in the home stretch. Let's just take a minute and look at this facade, right? We have 3 buildings. The Bullocks, 1919. The Keys building, which was remodeled in 1919 by Parkinson. And finally, Parkinson's edition in the 8-story edition, 1930. 3 different buildings. Parkinson just goes through and does as good a job as he can to meld all of them. I really, shall we walk down to the across? That's a beautiful Art Deco. I guess it has Art Deco. Beautiful, beautiful canopy. Yeah.
Take my hat off. It's pretty.
I have a feeling you're about to leave at any moment.
Right.
Okay. I have a bunch of side effects and loose ends to talk about, but Stephen, I want you to talk first because you're looking at your watch and I'm concerned. You have to get back to work. Good. Okay. You're looking at your hand for your names. Good. Okay. So this is it. This is it. John Parkinson builds this, and Bullocks expansion is done downtown. Okay. 8-story addition. This 9-story building is actually the Janet building, and this is built about 1914. And Mr. Letts purchases this too, and Parkinson incorporates it into his 8-story addition in 1930. So Stephen, it's 1930. Los Angeles is changing. Bullocks has been expanding. This has been expanding around the corner since 1907. Bullocks Wilshire, designed by John Parkinson, opens in 1929. I want you to tell us what a watershed in design Bullocks Wilshire is, and this will be in really contradistinction to this very nice but ultimately very straightforward facade that's in front of us. It's really kind of nice how Parkinson uses the bronze on the first couple floors to integrate the Janet building and his expansion, sort of make the eye go over. So tell us about Bullocks Wilshire.
Bullocks is quite a straightforward design, but Bullocks was known for having these incredible window displays.
We're going to get to that next.
Okay, it was very artistic inside. They put a real massive effort into expressing themselves throughout the structure. So in 1925, Percy Winnett, who's the chief buyer for Bullocks downtown, goes with John Parkinson's son Donald to the Paris exposition. And what they find in Paris at the exposition is a new architectural style that's fun, it's festive, it's joyful, and it really speaks to the possibilities of the period. So for many years they considered putting a store on Wilshire Boulevard, which even though it's two miles out of the city, it was a long way away from the stores of downtown. It was really out there by itself. And they had a fairly modest structure inside in mind, not dissimilar to this, a single structured department store. But once they go to the exposition, they see this new style that becomes known as Art Deco. They come back and they want to convince John G. Bullock at Bullocks Wilshire and John Parkinson that Art Deco is the way to go, and they really go crazy. And they come up with a structure that really blends the greatest efforts of the artists at the time with Parkinson's dynamic architectural style and his son's love of the latest architectural techniques. And what you see becomes known as an Art Deco cathedral of commerce. But a lot of the artistic understanding, the artistic belief was born in this store, even though you may think it looks fairly conservative. The displays and the things that happened inside these stores gave the owners the confidence to go and build an Art Deco masterpiece.
Stephen, thank you. That's fantastic. And I will add that the bronze on the first 2 floors of this their last edition really is an imitation of the Bullocks, the patina, the Vert degree on the top of Bullocks Wilshire. Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, let's.
I got a question.
Yes. Oh, questions, please.
You know, when you think of modern department stores and maybe even Bullocks, you think of like big expansive floors that are like open, and they look like offices. But was that because of the way they had to build it, these narrow?
Right. Well, the Janet building was not built as a department store. What's really interesting, and if you walk over when we're done to 8th and Broadway and look at Hamburgers, that will become May Company, this giant 1 million square foot box. I mean, Rosenheim, Moshe Hamburger was a genius because he built from scratch the modern department store, whereas Letts and Bullock were just hobbling these buildings together and doing a very good job of gutting them and connecting them, but really the vision of the uninterrupted floor space, 7 floors uninterrupted with just some columns here and there, that's really Hamburgers at 8th and Broadway. Or Bullocks Wilshire, which was just built as a totally perfectly conceived work of art, where every floor is just this pure, exactly what they want. Whereas these Bullock stores are cobbled together from different buildings. You have to connect the Janet building to the Pease building, and you've got so it's very different. To make John Alloway happy, I'm going to talk about the Hotel Continental right now. So, in 1930, they had to tear down the Hotel Continental. The Parkinson structure behind me, they could not save the Hotel Continental, and they tore it down in order to build the final 8-story expansion for Bullocks. The Hotel Continental was a hotel for vaudeville performers. Laurel and Hardy met in the lobby of the Hotel Continental. Okay? Every major vaudeville performer that came through Los Angeles stayed at the Hotel Continental. Sid Grauman lived at the Hotel Continental while he built his $1 million theater at 3rd and Broadway. Mae West lived at the Hotel Continental. Buster Keaton's father, Joe, lived at the Hotel Continental. When Buster Keaton's dad found out, so Buster Keaton's dad was very close with the manager of the Hotel Continental. Now remember, I had you look at the Yorkshire Apartments back on Broadway? The manager of the Hotel Continental is a very smart guy. He knew that they were coming to tear the building, got the heads up from the owners, were tearing the building down. He became the manager of the Yorkshire Apartments, and he just moved all the elderly vaudeville performers into the Yorkshire Apartments, one of which was Joe Keaton, Buster Keaton's dad. So Buster Keaton's dad, Buster had to take his dad by the hand and drag him out, kicking and screaming the Continental because he didn't want to leave because he loved it so much. And they put him up at the Yorkshire, and that's where Buster Keaton's dad died, at the Yorkshire. So remember the Hotel Continental. It's a very plain building. I found a photo, and it just really wasn't worth taking the time to show. And it was just a 6-story building. It was light brick, very, very modest. Okay, let's talk about window dressings. You talked about window dressings. I'm going to wrap this up. Okay? Do you want to hold my microphone for a second? You don't have to say anything.
I don't have to.
And it's 3:45, so we'll be done in 10 minutes. Okay. Department stores, even the reason I wanted you to talk about Bullocks Wilshire is that this was the great exodus. You have, I'm not even going to go into the number of department stores downtown. Desmond, Silverwoods are 2 examples. In the late 1920s, early 1930s, the move is to Wilshire. And there's really a major, the watershed is passed, and the way department stores function, the way they're built, the way they display goods fundamentally changes. I'm going to read you an article written in 1933 by a fashion critic for the Los Angeles Times, which is going to give us some excerpts, which is going to give us a sense of how department store window dressings from the teens through the 30s have fundamentally changed, and how Angelino's shopping patterns have fundamentally changed, and that's reflected in these new department stores being built on Wilshire. So the first thing I'm going to say before I start reading excerpts from this article is that the intersection of 7th and Broadway, where the Tahoma building is, where Mr. Letts and John Bullock built the first leg of this department store empire, that was the busiest intersection in Los Angeles up and through World War II. And what they found very quickly was that anything they put in the windows wouldn't sell. Nothing they put in the windows. And it was because the street intersection was too busy. No one was stopping to look. They were catching streetcars, they were catching buses, they were looking for people, and they found that any other windows except at that intersection did well. If you put stuff in any other windows, they did well. So they really spent from about 1907 to about 1912, 1913, really knocking their heads against the wall. Why are we putting all this time and energy into dressing the windows except at the Broadway, and it never moves? And they just found it was just too busy a corner, so they focused on other things. So what I want to do is just read to you. This is, the woman goes ahead and she interviews the head of window dressings at the May Company in 1932. And this is what the head of window dressings at the May Company has to say about the window displays in downtown Los Angeles. Leaving aside commercial considerations, which are considerable, no one can estimate the value to the community of this great show in what it does to keep alive the initiative and ambition of the individual, says C.W. Anthroth, Director of Displays at the May Company. How many thousands daily have new hopes and old ambitions to own beautiful things aroused by what they see in the show windows? Who can tell, for instance, what stimulus to thrift, perseverance, and patience is provided a young couple when they see in the show windows articles which will give them and their children a better appearance or will improve their home and its comforts? Show windows offering the quality of the world, providing the means of comparison, stimulating the imagination, and appealing to one's pride or even vanity, keep hope alive. Visualize the objects of our desires and indicate in the prices just how much effort and perseverance is ahead of us before we can achieve our goals. All window display directors of the larger stores at least and their staffs are imbued with this idealistic feeling towards their work. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's like, okay. All right. And this is another excerpt. It's 3 paragraphs, and I just want to read it because it basically takes us from the good old days, dressing windows in the early 1910s, to dressing windows in downtown Los Angeles in the 1930s, and that's about 20 years. And by the way, any James Oviatt fans, Oviatt and Alexander, this is when James Oviatt, right? James Oviatt was dressing windows in 1912. He was dressing windows for Story Building, 6th and Broadway, Mullet, and what's the department store at 6th in the Story Building? Blue and Mullet. Okay, those signs still there. Anyway, all right, let me read this. I know, we're almost done. In the old days, 15 to 20 years ago, in the teens, in the old days, you may remember having seen window trimmers at work. 2 or 3 would grab a double armload of goods and crawl into the window. A bolt of cloth would be dropped there, another strung over a chair, another bolt would be unwound and draped around a figure. One of the trimmers would experiment with shoes, handkerchiefs, and handbags, dropping one there, another here, stopping now and then to squint at the effect. An assistant outside the window, waving his hands like a surveyor directing roadmen, would assist in the placements. No, 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 that looks terrible. Shove them over to this side a bit. There. That's better. Say that red calico is taking all the flash out of that white coat over there. What do you say? I said, blah, 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 blah. Talking through the thick window glass was difficult. Now, before a trimmer ever steps into the window, every last detail of the display is worked out by an artist, the exact spot he draws to scale, where every article should be placed, the exact tint and color of everything to be used in the window, whether goods or decoration. He determines whether the best effect will be had by using a mannequin 6 feet tall or only 5'7". Instead of laboriously experimenting with articles in the window, the artist represents the articles with dabs of paint or crayon. If they don't look right, he blots them out and starts all over again. And this makes for an artistic window. So that's over 20 years. They really changed the way they dress windows. And I have one more paragraph, and this is this is the head of Bullocks, the head of window dressing at Bullocks, breaking down the 3 fundamental types of window displays in department stores, and it's very short. There are 3 different kinds of window displays, Mr. Piper explains. The goodwill window, tying up with some event or season, stressing the store's appreciation of sentiment and appropriateness rather than the goods. 2, the direct sale window, in which price appeal is everything. And 3, the future business window, which tells you the store has the goods, that they are excellent, that the price is right, and that if you're ever in the market for this particular commodity, this is the place to buy it. Okay? So, yeah. I think that's it. Let me look at my notes.
I think, Stephen, do you have any?
What happens to John Parkinson? Come on, you've been talking about the guy. Tell us what happens to John Parkinson. Yeah, just his life. He dies, right?
Everyone dies. No, I have one more thing to do.
Okay, 1925, the same time his son's going to Paris, John Parkinson begins work on City Hall. You know, still opened in 28. It's still there. After that, there's a 30-year legal battle over whether we need a Union Station in Los Angeles. Who's going to pay for it and where is it going to be? John Parkinson begins work on Union Station, and although he doesn't live to see the completion of it, it's still one of the most iconic structures in the city.
Perfect. I have one last thing I almost forgot. I worked out the breakdown by floor and by building of Bullocks as of This is 1960. Does everyone want to hear this? It'll take about 3 minutes. Okay. So this is the mature store. This is all 750,000 square feet, all the way from this building all the way around the corner down to 7th and Broadway. Okay. I feel like I'm benching. I feel like this is Rosh Hashanah or something. I thought you'd like that, Paul. Okay, so we'll start here. They're describing the basement in Hill Street.
Sorry, Richard. They're cleaning the sidewalk.
Well, that was effective.
So, when I worked for my grandfather, the racketeer, I lived in one of his buildings in northern Oakland, which was the building where his sons grew up when they were young men, and I lived there later. And there's populated by a bunch of really interesting artists. And there was this guy Lars, a Swiss philosopher. And Lars always used to tell me, he said, Switzerland is so great, even though he lived in Oakland. He refused to go back. Switzerland is so great because every major city in Switzerland has street sweepers. And they walk around all day and they're pensioned and they got health insurance and they got these awful little birds, but all they do all day is sweep, and all of them are getting their PhDs in philosophy. Every time I see a mechanized street sweeper, I think of and all the poor PhD philosophy students that could be. All right, let's do this. Okay, Hill Street, basement. So this is the building directly behind us, this whole swath on Hill Street. All right, Hill Street, basement. Men's sportswear accessory, camera shop, luggage, sporting goods, boots and saddle shop, and the soup bar. So the soup bar, which was accessible both from Hill Street and from St. Vincent Court. Okay, street level, Hill Street. Fine jewelry, watches, clocks, and silver. Then on the street. Also on the street level was what they called the Talk of the Town shop. Talk of the Town had jewelry, handbags, stationery, town and travel dresses, town and travel sportswear, town and travel country clothes, town and travel sports and suits. Men's accessories were also housed on the street floor. Men's shoes, men's hats, and a men's gift shop, their smoke shop, and their stationery shop were all on the first floor. Okay, then let's switch over back to Broadway, to the first floor of Broadway. Cutlery, hosiery, fashion accessories, handbags, personal leather goods, women's gloves, legs fashion, fashion jewelry, fashion tops, street floor sweaters, blouses, plus street floor bra bar. Let's say that again. Street floor bra bar.
Soup bar and bra.
Street floor lingerie, cosmetics, toiletries, magic nut, candy shop, and notions. Okay?
Gotta be notions.
Mezzanine, Hill Street, and I can't figure out what the I think the mezzanine is this mezzanine level right here, because there's a bridge. They designate the bridge. The bridges have designations too. So I think the mezzanine is just these squarish windows right here. Sportswear. And that's a very dramatic build-up for just sportswear. Sorry. Okay. Let's go to the second level. Second level, I think you can see clearly. Fine linens, casual linens, decorative linens, patio linens, sheets, bedding, towels, closet shops, stores for boys, men's clothing, the Winbur shop, men's robes, varsity sport, luggage. Okay, now let's turn down to 7th, and we're talking about the bridges, right? The bridges that connect the Eshman building with the original Bullocks. Okay, South Bridgeway is photographic studios. The South Bridgeway would be the bridge closest to the street that we were standing under, and the North Bridgeway is going to be the one behind us. South Bridgeway is photographic studio. Good place for a photography studio, right? Northern windows. Okay, South Bridgeway had Furs, Sherwin Coats, and Sherwin Millinery. Interesting. Okay. Second floor on the Broadway side. We're almost done. I know, I feel like this and Rosh Hashanah too. Second floor on the Broadway side, California shop. Second floor, Broadway side, Californienne. That's, I believe, a French spelling of California. If the there E's double, you can see later. Californienne shop, patio shop, uniform, maternity, yardage, woolens, cottons, silks and rayons, lace and edgings. All right, let's get up to the third floor, Hill Street side. Little Money Dresses, Miss Angela Shop, Fashion Gallery, Innovators, Status Sportswear, Status Dresses, Emphasis Sportswear, Emphasis Dresses, Emphasis Collectibles, Outerwear, The Florentine Room, Sherwin Sportswear, Sherwin Shoes, Sherwin Shirts, Bridal Salon, and Bridal Consultant.
That's the third floor?
That's the third floor.
What's the Florentine was on the third
I don't
floor?
know what the Florentine Room is.
I've seen postcards.
The Bridal Shop, third floor. Okay.
It's like a cafe.
I don't know what the Florentine Room is. I tried to find it. All right, South Bridgeway, I already discussed. Let's get to the third floor of the Broadway side. Sherwin Dresses, Lady Bullock Dresses, Lady Bullock Sportswear, Millinery, the Florentine Room again, Dorothy Mills, Shopping Services. So that must be like if you want to return something. All right, we're halfway there. Fourth floor, Hill Street. Fourth floor, Collegian Coats and Suits, Collegian Sportswear, Collegian Dresses, Collegian Shoes, Collegian Lingerie, Young Attitude, Art, Needlework, and Yarns. South Bridgeway, the bridge closest to the street, fourth floor, Robes, Campus High Shop. Fourth floor on Broadway, all the way back on Broadway. Fashion Shoes, Town and Travel Shoots, Young Attitude, Sleepwear, Robes, and Leisure Wear, Daytime Lingerie, Bra and Body Fashions, Young Attitude Lingerie, and Women's Slippers. Fifth floor, Hill Street. We're getting there, don't worry. Fifth floor, Hill Street. Curtains, draperies, lamps, and the 1001 shop. South Bridgeway, fifth floor, closest to the street, bedroom accessories. Broadway, fifth floor, toys, young shoes, baby shop, toddler shop, children's lingerie, 3 to 6 shop, 7 to 14 shop, girls accessories, Twix teen shop, girls sleepwear, young junior dresses, junior sportswear. Sixth floor, Hill Street, Oriental rugs, casual rugs, carpeting, radios, televisions, electronics, and records. Broadway, sixth floor, housewares, electronics, dining accessories, china, bridal gift registry, glassware, bath shop, major appliances, barbecue shop, trim the home shop. Now we're in the home stretch. Seventh floor, Hill Street, seventh floor. Sleep shop, furniture shop, modern furniture, occasional furniture, traditional furniture, contemporary furniture, provincial shop, boudoir shop, the home boutique, Tunbridge shop, antiques, decorative accessories, gifts, homemaker shop, Windfair shop, studio of interior design. And on the Broadway side, the Sun shop, the poolside shop, and Homeworks. And that's basically almost the top floor of the Tacoma building. You're the seventh floor, you're at the top. All right, eighth floor is on the Broadway side. The top floor of the Tacoma building is the Palmetto Room. I have no idea what the Palmetto Room. I couldn't find. It's definitely a restaurant. Yeah.
Maybe
all right.
Cigars. Maybe you could.
I don't know. We're almost done. Don't stop me. We're with 2 more items. Okay. 9th floor, Hill Street, Bullocks Beauty Salon, and no. 9th floor would be. 9th floor would be there, because that's the 9th floor. Because the addition's 8. So the 9th floor is the beauty salon, and the 10th. Oh, yeah. No, we're talking about this building, right? The 1919 building. The 10th floor is executive offices. So the top floor of the 1919 Parkinson structure is executive office, and we're done.
Woo!
That's 750,000 square feet of retail space. It's unbelievable. It's totally unbelievable.
Spend a day in there, a week.
You could spend a week in there.
What's next month, Richard?
Go. Questions, go.
Were the basements connected between the buildings?
I don't know if the basements were connected. I really don't know if the basements were connected. All I know is that the soup bar was there and it was very popular.
Gordon doesn't think so.
Yeah, I imagine that they probably poked bump holes, but I don't think they opened up the basements, because you're basically dealing with the foundations. I mean, in these buildings, the basements are going to have really serious structural footings that you probably don't want to, you know.
So they weren't.
You don't want to get jackhammer to them and take out 50% of that footing. I wouldn't. Any other questions? You guys are very patient. Thank you for letting me get through this, like the reading. Next month, we're going to end the series next month. We're very excited. The series will officially take a hiatus after next month. Next month we'll meet after the salon. We're going to walk up to the Broadway building. Suzanne Lummis, who is Charles Lummis's granddaughter, is going to join us. We're going to have Suzanne Lummis has created a performance art piece which is very flexible called Poem Noir, and it's an event where poets read poems based on Bunker Hill and film noir, which go together. So no better place to do it than the Broadway building. So next month's tour is going to do several things. We're going to have Donald Spivak back, who is the Deputy Chief of Operations and Policy for the CRA. Donald's going to join us. He's going to talk about 3rd Broadway. He's going to talk about Ira Yellen purchasing the Broadway building, purchasing Grand Central Market, purchasing $1 Million Theater, the Metropolitan Water building in which the $1 Million Theater sits. He's going to talk about the invention of Ira inventing residential conversions in downtown. We'll have Suzanne and her poets perform Poem Noir over the course of the tour, because we'll come back to the Broadway several times. And Gordon, you're going to do a piece. We're going to walk through Grand Central, and you're going to do a piece at the foot of Angel's Flight, because Angel's Flight isn't working. And you'll read a piece at the foot of Angel's Flight about your father and John Fontaine. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, I want to thank you for your patience. If you have questions, I'm here. Ask me. Social media, take photos. If you take photos, tag it. Broadway on my mind. And Kim, is it safe to say that in the new year we'll be doing walking tours after the salon in the Arts District?
I think that
It's safe to say that, yes. I don't know how we're going to get there. We're not going to walk. I think we're going to carpool. But we're going to go to Urban Radish, and the owner of Urban Radish is obsessed with architecture in the Arts District, so she's going to lead some informal. We'll continue this series in the Arts District and just hour and a half walks around the Arts District to talk about it there. So thank you, and I'm here for questions. No.
No, it's not?
The end, no. Good question. Is next month's tour over Thanksgiving weekend? And the answer is no. For some reason this year, Thanksgiving is the 28th, and the tour next month, the salon next month will be the 23rd, I think. Because the last Thanksgiving weekend will have a Sunday that's actually November 1. Yeah, the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend will actually be November. It confused me too. Yeah. And I'm the one that's scheduling my birthday tour.
Or December even.
December 1, did I say?
Yeah, you did.
December 1. The Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend is December 1st. And Hanukkah's like, Hanukkah's like November 20th or something. I know. Okay, it's really early.
It was in shul. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you. I'm gonna get a sip of water. Oh, everyone thanks Steven. Come on, everyone thanks Steven. Live book. Live book.
Why did you bring some?
I thought speaking once and that was
Well, still.